Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd with the best teeth in the game. And it's time for another edition of Let's Argue, where I go over a bunch of hot takes, unpopular opinions, and tough questions that you have thrown to me via social media. I respond to the best ones in these segments. Let's go! To Pimp a Butterfly is a hilariously bad and silly sounding album title. I mean, when you understand the point and the concept of the record, not really, as the entire record is essentially about selling a person, commercializing artistry and emotion and humanity. So the idea is to sell and to market this organic thing, to pimp something as natural and as innocent as a butterfly. And when you go even deeper into the album title with the acronym, and the guys over at Dead End Hip Hop pointed this out and Kendrick confirmed it in an interview, that originally the album title, or sort of what Kendrick was thinking in the early stages of creating it, was more a To Pimp a Caterpillar, to sort of tribute Tupac, because you have the two PAC. So knowing and understanding all of that, it makes absolute sense. I guess you could see the album title as dumb if you have no idea what the album is about and you're only just hearing of it just now. I hate to say this, but I think I agree with Lil Xan. As influential as Tupac was to hip-hop, his music isn't that great. Lil Xan, if I remember correctly, remind me if I am incorrect here, his point against Tupac was that he makes boring music, and I feel like Lil Xan isn't really in the position to be commenting on whether or not another artist's music is boring when he literally makes just drivel. There are certainly artistic critiques that one could make of Tupac's music. I mean, the man had some bad songs in his catalog, yes, and you could argue that over the course of time, maybe his music has not aged as well sonically and aesthetically as some other artists who were his contemporaries, okay? Like, obviously, The Chronic aged way better than All Eyes on Me did. But still, Tupac's ratio of good to bad tracks is way higher than Lil Xan's, and really any number of other try-hard mumble rappers that are just going at him to get some attention. If you were to re-review Teens of Denial, you'd give it a 9. I would have to go back over the track list and see which tracks I loved and which ones maybe I didn't love so much, but I guess I wouldn't deny the idea that the album has grown on me since I initially reviewed it. But still, even considering this, to me, I know that a lot of the fans make a big deal of this, and I understand why. I get that it's just sort of the nature of the beast. But in my view, it's not like there's a huge, world of difference between a record that gets an 8 and a record that gets a 9. They're both still very good quality records. There are plenty of records that I've scored 8 that habitually I probably find myself listening to more often than some of the records I've given a 9, maybe because they're a little bit more accessible or approachable or something like that. Some of the records that I end up scoring the highest do tend to be albums that are sort of more like experiences or are a bit more intensive. So while, again, I think your baseline assertion here is most likely true, for me it's not like an aha moment or something that's a shocker in any way, shape, or form. I mean, scores are cool, scores are convenient, I just don't think they're the most important thing in the world. Rich Brian walked so Lil Nas X could run. In what regard? By what measure? In what way? I don't understand. I don't think either of them sound like each other. I guess both of them, when they first exploded onto the scene, had a very viral and meme-like quality to their breakout track, to their intro into the music industry. But Rich Brian and Lil Nas X are just like one of a few examples of many artists that's essentially been the case. Like Ugly God? He's certainly a prime example, and if we want to go back even further, would any of these guys be around without Lil B? I don't know about that. I don't know. The Ooze isn't bad. It aesthetically expresses Kafkaesque themes of alienation, self-loathing, oppression, and control in a poetic bohemian inner-city melancholy really well. But you reviewed it negatively because you personally dislike slower, formless, vignette/mood-building music. I certainly appreciate what you're trying to say here in terms of the themes and the messaging in the King Krule album, the Ooze. But here's the thing. this is not the only album that I've ever reviewed, and I've reviewed thousands, that has presented to me, hey, some pretty compelling lyrics or themes or a concept, but for whatever reason, the writing, the instrumentation, the production just totally bites. The musical element of the album is just not really that interesting to me. And this just happens to be one of those cases, and in this particular case, I really disliked a lot of the music on it. It wasn't just a case of being underwhelmed by it or thinking it's not just for me, I just really straight up disliked it. Die-hard black metal fans are walking contradictions. They embrace an offensive genre for the fact that it's offensive to people, then get offended when people say it's offensive. I don't get this. I don't see this. Where is this happening? When is this happening? I can't recall an interview or a forum post I've ever read where like the dudes from Emperor or Bathory or Darkthrone are like whining and crying about, people don't like our music because it's offensive. Nor can I recall many fans complaining about this too, because in my experience, a lot of these black metal diehards do kind of like the community and the genre to be sort of insular, which is a very insider-outsider mentality that I don't necessarily vibe with. But still, that doesn't really play out in this narrative of black metal fans crying because people think that their favorite style of music is too offensive to enjoy. NPR Tiny Desk is better than MTV Unplugged. I agree. This is not even really debatable. I mean, there weren't really that many MTV Unpluggeds to speak of, whereas there are like hundreds and hundreds of NPR Tiny Desks at this point. And generally, they cover a much wider array of artists and can be very quirky and fun and cheeky and silly, show a new interesting side to an artist that you've been loving and enjoying for a long time, become a place that turns you on to an artist that you've never really gotten into before. So yeah, culturally, I think NPR Tiny Desk has way more value than frickin' MTV Unplugged maybe ever did. That and Color Show, damn, that shit's popping off right now. Go Color Show, hell yeah, Color Show. People who dislike hip hop and rap are inherently racist. I mean, I think there's certainly a correlation to this, but you know, it's not one-to-one. A lot of the music people enjoy just comes down to preference, and a lot of that preference is informed by experience and culture and where and how you were raised. And there are a myriad of different contexts in which one could grow up where you either most likely wouldn't enjoy hip-hop music or you just wouldn't know all that much about it. If coming to the conclusion that someone is racist is your goal, there are way smarter questions and inquiries that you could explore to end up reaching that answer. If all you're asking people is, what kinds of genres do you like and not like, you're gonna get a lot of false positives and negatives. The music industry is pay to win. This is true in a sense, but the way that you put it is a little reductive. It's not like if you have $300,000 right now, you can just start indiscriminately throwing it into the music industry and then just voila, you have a career. It doesn't work that way. There are lots of artists out there over the years who I've talked to and have just sort of been aware of the PR campaigns of, and a lot of money may have gone into their PR campaign, some of which was their own, maybe some of which was from the label or the PR firm that they were working with. And yeah, it didn't get off the ground because it just didn't resonate with people or the music wasn't very good. So I wouldn't say the music industry is literally just pay to win. Ask our friend Uncle Adams. You know, I'm not hating on the guy or anything, but he has paid quite a bit into the music industry and he is very much in debt as a result of it. And he is still trying to win. He has not won yet. I'm not counting the guy out or anything, but you know, some of that money I'm sure he wishes he did not spend. Going into the industry with money and having resources, having the ability to pay for certain beats or studio time or just be working on your art for months on end without having to worry about food or shelter and so on and so forth. Those things will greatly increase your ability to succeed, but they do not guarantee success. What are your thoughts on this hot, heavy metal take from Calvin and Hobbes? I mean, I think it's kind of a cute comic. It's got some cheeky humor to it. However, it's not really a profound or a thorough understanding of the artists within the genre of heavy metal who have explored the theme of suicide in their music. To go as far as to say that a Judas Priest or even an album from the catalog of records in the genre of suicidal black metal are advocating for suicide insofar as they want their audience to actually kill themselves. Yeah, that's kind of a logical leap in my view, and not really an appreciation for what the point of the art is, and the irony here is that that misunderstanding is coming from another piece of art. And speaking of other art forms, what about the variety of artists throughout the genres of folk, or rock, or blues, or hip-hop that have had some suicidal themes crop up in their stuff? Are they insincere because they're not killing themselves or advocating that their fans kill themselves? Is every expression of suicidal emotions in art insincere just because the artists aren't killing themselves? It's pretty shallow. That's shallow. Post-ambient music would just be silence. I don't know if I so much agree with the idea of that, because while ambient music is quiet and it is meant to hang around in the background, that does not mean that music isn't existing. There is certainly something there in that ambience. In a way, I would say post-ambient music is kind of already here, because you do have ambient artists and composers who make ambient music that is maybe a bit more active or compositionally engaging than a lot of the records that came out at the forefront of the genre. And a lot of genres that have post in the front just usually mean this genre, but sort of expanded upon artistically in a variety of different ways. And I would argue, in terms of ambient music, that has happened to a very great degree. We just haven't really sort of thrown the post in front of any records at this point. We just still kind of call all of it ambient music. And I think I'm going to leave it at that, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for viewing. You're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. Over here next to my head is another Let's Argue that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, music, let's argue, forever.